Welcome to the Wing and a Prayer podcast, a show about all things Seattle Mariner baseball. I am your host, Andy Wing. Thank you to all those who have listened, downloaded, and shared with your friends. The show is growing and has nearly 500 downloads. Now, you can find this show on most anywhere you find your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and now YouTube. You can also find the show on Instagram at Wing and a Prayer Podcast. I'm still working on the short form content. It's slowly building, but we're getting there. Now, on to the show. On today's show, we have an absolutely packed agenda for you all. We're going to start off with my opening thoughts, the state of Mariner baseball right now front of mind. And then we're going to look at news and notes, including injuries, call-ups, Brant Brown, and John Stanton comments even. And then we'll go over into the 10-game segments. You all know I love diving into that. So we're going to look at games 51 through 60 and then 61 through 70 that just finished today and how they fared in those two segments. And then we'll go over into the rumor mill, trade targets, trade bait, even a trade target that's in Seattle right now that we just got to watch front and center, and we'll talk about that. And then we'll go into taking advantage of the schedule, winning the games you should win, winning your home games. We'll kind of look at some numbers behind the numbers and see where they're at as of right now. And then we'll go into Cal Raleigh being clutch. Yes, we need to look at this. He is the master this year of late game heroics that we're going to look at. And then we'll head over to writing the hot hand. We'll continue that segment from last episode, and then we'll finish it all off with an Andy's rant that I know you are all looking forward to. And with that, let's get into it. Opening thoughts. Walk-offs, walk-offs, walk-offs. What a better way to win a game than walking off the field on a grand slam or a base hit to score the winning run and make the other team just feel decimated. Well, the Mariners have now done that twice in this White Sox series, winning the first 3 games, winning 4 in a row overall with a chance to sweep tomorrow. And that is what's on my mind right now, seeing that. This team is scrappy. They find ways to win late. Even though they blew the save in today's game, I had no doubts that they would come back and win this game. They are scrappy. They find ways to put a run on the board late. Now, we'd all love it if they put runs on the board earlier in the game to set themselves up for a better situation and not rely on late game heroics. But hey, late game heroics are fun. It's exciting. It keeps you engaged. And every game in this series so far against the White Sox has come to a late game hit. The first 2 by Cal Raleigh, which we'll talk about later, and the last one today by Mitch Haniger scoring the winning run. And thinking about these 3 games against the White Sox and some of the games against the Royals, it got me thinking about a question that was asked on the Brock and Sox show by Mike Salk. He talked about his daughter asking him the question, why is baseball so stressful? And it got me really thinking about this, and I kind of wanted to talk about it. And baseball, to me, is stressful because there's no clock. The game is about counting how many pitches, the inning, how many hits, how many runs. All of it is just counting. And what that counting does is it creates anticipation. It creates tension. And throughout a game, that anticipation and tension builds, especially as a fan watching the game and you have an expectation in your head that your team should be putting up more runs or doing something that they're not doing, and it gets agonizing and stressful when each inning goes by, each out is recorded, and they're not doing anything and nothing's coming of it, and you see your pitcher shutting down the other team, and nothing is happening, and it's a 0-0 game like in today's game, and it just gets more tension-filled, and then when you finally see that home run in the 7th inning, it's like this release. It's like, finally, yes, and it's exciting. Baseball's a game of tension and anticipation, and then you're anticipating that big play, that big moment, hoping, praying your player comes through, and when they do, it's like this release of emotions. And then when they don't, it's like the other way. You're sad, you're just upset, like, come on, I can't believe this. And so that's why also I love baseball. I love that aspect of the anticipation, the waiting, the sitting on the edge of your seat in a late game situation, hoping that your player makes the play or hits the ball in the gap or strikes out the batter at the plate. There's no clock that's stopping the game like they have to get it in by, but rather there's an anticipation of that singular pitch of what's going to happen and how's it going to influence the game. And one pitch can be the absolute difference in a game won or lost. And that one game can be the difference in your team making the playoffs. And we've seen a la Arizona Diamondbacks, just making the playoffs sometimes is good enough to get you to a World Series or even sometimes win a World Series. So that's why every pitch matters. Everything is on display, and it's anticipation. It's waiting for what's going to happen. You're hoping and praying on a wing and a prayer that something good will happen for your team. Some other things on my mind really is when they played the Royals series and playing the Royals at their ballpark versus T-Mobile Park. Well, the Mariners are playing really well at home too. So they took 2 or 3 from the Royals, but when they went to KC, they played well, even in the first game, got to an 8-0 lead, and then decided to absolutely have the worst pitching game of the year and blow that lead. And the Royals, even though they won the last game, man, the Royals look like a stellar team in their own home ballpark. And the Mariners won that last game, but man, that was one of the more stressful games in and of itself, because every time the Mariners took a lead, there's the Royals clawing right back, putting the pressure on. And I'll tell you what, that Royals team is not a team I would want to face in the playoffs. I'd honestly rather face the Yankees, because the Yankees got great power hitters, but with great pitching that can shut them down. The Royals put the ball in play, and they take your best pitcher and hit a little dink ball down the right field line, and then when they get them rattled, they hit a 2-run homer. So that's a part that scares me about the Royals. They had really good pitching as well, and so I'm glad to be done with them and not have to play them the rest of the year. And the Mariners have a little bit of a complex of what the Royals have. They're mediocre or okay on the road and really good at home. And so the Mariners have looked a bit overmatched against good teams on the road. And so it'll be interesting to see as the season plays out if that continues. The Mariners have been excellent at home, and they need to keep that up. And we'll dig into that more in a little while later in the show. News and notes. Wow, is there a lot to talk about here? We're going to start off with injuries. If you've been paying attention at all, you've realized Bryan Woo skipped his start yesterday. And again, we all take our collective breath of, oh no, does this mean Tommy John? Well, it looks like it's not that. His MRI today actually came back clean, and it's just a little sore, and they're going to let him rest for a little bit and hopefully get him back in the rotation within a week, which is excellent news. They can survive without him for a week or skip start. That's totally fine. But they really need him to be healthy the rest of the year, so be cautious with him. I don't care. For all of you, us, and you out there that were questioning Service taking him out after 66 pitches, I'm actually glad he did that now, knowing what's been going on. So Bryan Woo set to come back here soon. Great news. Always fear the worst when injury in a pitcher like that come about. Next up, Jorge Polanco. Jorge Polanco went out with a hamstring injury on May 13th and has been out of the lineup for nearly a month. It's taken a little bit longer to heal from this injury, but they want to make sure that he is good to go when he comes back. He's hitting under 200, not been a great offensive asset to the team right now, so they want to make sure he's fully healthy and ready to go. Looks like he's about ready to head on a rehab assignment. They wanted to make sure he can run the bases. That's the latest as of today. And so he'll probably go on a rehab assignment for, 4 or 5 games, depending on his situation before he comes back. But it's good to hear that he is pretty close to coming back. And I really hope this rest and this time being healthy will help his bat get going and be a productive member of the offense, because they really need him to be. Next up on injury watch is Ty France. Ty France took a pitch off his foot on June 7th, and he ended up fracturing his heel, so he went on the 10-day IL. Now, it seems like it's not too painful, and he's dealing with it well, and it's healing well. So they expect him to come back on June 18th or shortly after. Should be only another 4 or 5 days away from him coming back, which is good to see, because he was raking and hitting well and one of the best hitters in the team. So they really need his bat back in the lineup to be that consistent force. The team is also being very cautious with Andres Munoz. He had a tag at home plate where he hurt his back and he has a lower back strain. Now, he's pitched since then, but they're being very cautious with him, not giving him too much workload because it's still bothering him, and they want to make sure that he's healthy for the long run, and I'm totally fine with that. So just hope he continues to heal and can get back in that closing spot very soon, because we have seen, especially today, that bullpen's taxed. It's a little thin, and they need that depth back in that bullpen. Call-ups. So with these injuries, they've had to call up some rookies that making their major league debuts to come up and fill spots. So two we're going to highlight here. First one, Tyler Locklear. Now, I've been talking to Tyler Locklear since the beginning of the season in spring training, some of the minor league prospects. And then we dug into him and recently as well as a guy you could potentially see up in the big leagues. Now, he came up a little faster than any of us really thought, but he's been killing it in Double-A and even in Triple-A. And so with Ty France going out, they gave him a shot. And so far, I like what I see. He hits the ball hard. He's going to strike out from time to time. It's the big leagues. He's learning. He's adjusting. But in his first game, he hit 2 balls extremely hard. One went for a fly ball out deep into the gap, and the other went for a double in the 7th inning to give the team the go-ahead run. I like his clutch factor, and even tonight, in the 8th inning, he rips a base hit to left field to give his team a chance to help win the game. And so I love his game. I love the way he's playing at first base. He's going to get sent back down when Ty France comes back, but it's good to see him, what he can do, because he'll be a player for the future for them, for sure. The other player that's come up and made his major league debut was covering Polanco, which is Ryan Bliss. And I love what Ryan Bliss is doing. Ryan Bliss is fast. The plays he has made at second base have been phenomenal. He's made a couple outstanding defensive plays, and this team needed a jump. They needed help on defense. They needed somebody fast that can get on base, that can steal bases, and Ryan Bliss is that. And he even has some pop. In one of the games against the Royals in that first game, in which they scored 8 runs, they scored 7 in the first inning, and Ryan Bliss crushed the ball 425 feet to left field. He's not a big guy, but he's got big guy pop, and so that's really cool to see. He's going to get more playing time and opportunity as well. He'll probably, I don't know what's going to happen when Polanco comes back, but it's still good to see. He's been a jolt to the team. He's been a big help. He lays down bunts. He puts pressure on the defense, and so I love what he's doing, and I hope he keeps getting opportunities. So since the last episode came out, the Mariners made a drastic move and let go of their offensive coordinator, Brant Brown. Now, this was a new position created at the beginning of the year. They specifically brought him in to really help coordinate the entire offensive game, including base running and bunting, not just swinging anyway. But that has not worked. Their offense, they brought in guys that were more contact, a little bit less power, and they're striking out at a much higher rate. And their offense is actually worse than it was last year, and we all complained about how bad their offense was last year. And so 60 games in, they let him go, which honestly, it's pretty shocking because you brought him in to help and you let him go this early. To me, that tells me the Mariners are serious, and they know that their window to win is right now. With this pitching staff and the team they have around it, they had to make a drastic move. And what has happened since they let Brant Brown go? Well, they're 7-3. They played 10 games. They're scoring 4.6 runs per game, and their batting average is up 35 points over what it was right before they let him go. And so I don't know if that's coincidence or the teams they're playing, but it sure doesn't look good. As soon as he leaves, their offensive numbers go up and improving. Now, is their offensive team great and all of a sudden all the problems are fixed? Absolutely not. There's still a lot of concerns. A lot of things aren't working great, but it is improved. And so who knows? Maybe this is a positive move. Maybe guys weren't buying in and there's a feeling of relief in the clubhouse. I don't know, but it's working. And so I'm happy to see that. Sometimes tough decisions have to be made, and, there's good positive results that come out of it. And lastly, on news and notes, I just want to comment on what John Stanton stated in an interview recently done. And he made comments about supporting the team and giving them the resources they need to go out and make a deal at the trade deadline, and how much he believes in the team and how he thinks they can win the West, which is great to hear. You want to hear your owner say, I'm giving my guys the resources they need to go make a move, get this team better. We're going to win. I just wish he'd been saying this all along. And proof is in the pudding. You got to actually do it. You got to actually commit and go for it. And now's the time to go for it. We're going to talk a little bit about in the rumor mill, but I just hope his comments weren't in vain and that they just fall on deaf ears. And I wish this would have come a lot sooner, maybe in the off season. But hey, they're here. Let's see how it plays out. Let's see what happens. Next up on the show, we are going to be spending some time in the 10-game segments. If you followed along up to this point, you'll know I like looking at the season in 10-game segments. The trended information, how do they perform in 10-game segments? There's 16 10-game segments in the season. They have finished the last 2 segments since the last episode, games 51 through 60 and games 61 through 70. So looking at games 51 through 60, that started on May 23rd and went through June 1st. During this stretch of time, the Mariners went 6-4, which that's 60% baseball. That's winning baseball. That's a winning week. It's a great week. Anytime they go 6-4 during a 10-game stretch, it's a great week. Now, how did they get there? I'll tell you what. They hit 196 as a team during that 10-game stretch. They scored 3.4 runs per game. Now, if you're every other team in the league, if you were to see that stat, wouldn't you be like banging your head against the wall? Like, are you kidding me? You can hit 196 as a team, score 3.4 runs a game, and win 6 out of 10. That is unreal. It just shows how dominant their pitching staff is. During that same stretch, they only gave up 3.2 runs a game, won a lot of close games, which is a common theme this year. And so to have that bad of an offense, and then they fire their offensive coordinator, Brant Brown, which we've already talked about, after going 6-4 during that 10-game stretch. But the offense has looked miserable and did during that stretch as well. But somehow they're just winning games. And so if you're the GM of like the Astros, you're like, are you kidding me right now? I have a great offense and I can't win games. And they have a terrible offense and they were still winning 60% of their games during that stretch. During that stretch, they scored 2 runs or less 5 times and gave up 2 runs or less 4 times. They faced New York Yankees on the road, the Washington Nationals on the road, Houston at home, and the Los Angeles Angels at home during that stretch. And with the Mariners playing so well at home, they took advantage of even a bad offense to get good pitching and win games. Now, the Mariners just finished up their next 10-game segment from Game 61 through Game 70, starting on June 2nd and finishing up today, June 12th. They just beat the White Sox. They took the first 3 games of that series. They've now won 4 in a row, and they finished that 10-game stretch at 7-3, a game better than even the week before, which puts them at 5 weeks where they've had a winning week and only 2 losing weeks, which is really great. I mean, that's why they're 10 games over 500 right now. In these last 10 games, their offense has picked it up a bit. They're scoring 4.6 runs a game. Their batting average is up near 230 instead of 199. They're clubbing a few more home runs, and their OPS is a little over 700, which it was like in the 500s the week before. Now, their pitching staff isn't quite as dominant as it was the week before, but they're still only giving up 3.7 runs a game, up from 3.2 the week before, so still under 4, which is good, and that helps you keep yourself in ball games, because the pitching staff isn't always going to be super dominant, but it keeps them in ball games and helps them win those close one-run games. What's helping the Mariners out in these weeks, having winning weeks, especially when the offense isn't good, is they're winning one-run games. They have the best winning percentage in one-run games in the league at 15-6. They're also 5-1 in extra inning games. And so they're winning those close, tight games that there's other teams in the league that are, the Astros this year are like 5-14 in one-run games. And that is decimating their record, where the Mariners have played well in those situations, and that's helping them. So even if the offense isn't always playing well, their pitching staff's keeping them in the game and helping them win games, and they're winning those close games and come in clutch moments. So we will keep looking at these 10-game segments. I love kind of keeping up on the trends of how they're performing. They've been having winning weeks, and so they need to keep that up. If they keep having 6-4 and 7-3 weeks, that's how you start getting to that 7, 8, 10 games over 500, and that helps carry them even further as the season goes on. I mean, we are in June, people, and they're 10 games over 500. I mean, they've been 10 games under 500 at this point in the season in prior years and came all the way back. So they're in a good spot now. They need to keep going, but it doesn't look like they're going to rely on a 14-game winning streak to get them back in the race. And so to be this far ahead, they just need to keep grinding, keep pushing hard. I know they're 6.5 games up, but it just doesn't really feel like it. And it feels like with their offense not playing well, they still haven't put it all together yet. And so I have a really hard time thinking they're just going to be, oh, we're way up, and so we're not going to play as well. Well, they haven't played great till now, and they're that far up. So just keep grinding, keep pushing, keep trying to get better, get that offense going, and they will maintain that lead. Next up on the show, we are jumping right into the rumor mill. I absolutely love the rumor mill, the hot stove in baseball. All offseason, I scan Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and other news sources, just looking for snippets of information about the Mariners. Are they making a move? Is there any action out there going on? And I love just scanning, and that's part of like the aspect of baseball I love. Same with the rumor mill. It's just the anticipation of what's going to happen and what could the implications be. Well, as the Mariners sit in first place, the key area of opportunity for this team is the offensive side. So there's been a lot of speculation and rumors thrown around of, as we get closer to the trade deadline, teams that may be sellers. Well, the Mariners are buyers. And so who are they going to go after? Well, we're going to look at 3 players that they're going to potentially target that would help this team right now. And the first one up is the guy that's in town right now for the Chicago White Sox, Luis Robert Jr. Luis Robert Jr. is a center fielder for the White Sox. He is a tall, strong man that hits the ball very, very hard and very, very far. In this series alone, he's hitting 2 home runs. He hit the game-tying home run today in the 9th inning on the first pitch, and it was just absolutely crushed and no doubter. And I think Mariner fans are kind of frothing over this, like, get this guy, don't let him leave Seattle. I've seen that all over Twitter. But let's look at him a little bit closer. So he's only played in 14 games this year. He was injured to start the year, and that's kind of been his downfall to start his career. He's been somewhat often injured. Now, he played 145 games last year, and last year was a big breakout year. Last year he had 38 home runs, he had 90 RBIs, 857 OPS, and a 128 WRC+. Now, remember with WRC+, anything over 100 is above average. So the 128 is getting to high-level elite status in the league. And he had his breakout year last year, but at the end of the year, he was still injured. And so injuries, we have enough guys on this team that are off injured. And so I'm not quite sure he's the right guy, but the benefit of getting a Luis Robert Jr. in your lineup is he's under club control under his current contract, along with options through 2028, I believe is his first free agent year. So you'd have him for the next few seasons. So that might be a reason to go get him, but right now is probably a little bit early. The Chicago White Sox are asking for a king's ransom, and I just don't think you mortgage your future to go get him at the moment. Maybe as it gets closer, they'll be willing to give him up for a little bit less, but when he's under that kind of control and they're willing to trade him, they're going to hold out for the best available option, the best package as possible. So I'm not sure you'll get him for that great of a price, so it may not be worth it. And this year so far, he's hitting 182. He's got 5 home runs, well now 6. He's got 8 RBIs, and he's got 97 WRC+. Now, it's a short, small sample size because he's been injured. And what we've seen in this Mariners series is he hits the ball hard, he can crush the ball at the ballpark. He's also susceptible to the strikeout. Breaking ball in the dirt, got him multiple times. So it'll be interesting to see if they approach him or go after him at all. And I think when he takes your team deep a couple times in a series, you're like, go get him now. But I don't know. The cost may not be worth it. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The Blue Jays have been a really good team last several years, and they had high hopes that they would put a winning team on the field this year, but it has not amounted to much at this point. Now, they're only one game under 500, but they're in a division with the Yankees, who have the best record in baseball, and they're 14 games out of first place and only one game out of last place. And so that team is probably looking themselves in the mirror and saying, are we going to be sellers of the deadline? Now, it's not for sure yet, so not sure if they're going to make some moves. But if they do, I really like going after Vlad Guerrero. He had a monster year in 2021, nearly got the MVP. He hit 48 home runs that year, had a 1,000 OPS and a 166 WRC+. Now, since then, has he been at that level? No, not quite. But even his quote-unquote down years is better than really most of anything the Mariners have on the team right now. So his next year, 2022, and then in 2023, each of those years, he hit 32 home runs in 2022, 26 last year, both years well over 90 RBIs, both years at or near that 800 OPS mark, well over 100 WRC+. And so to this year, in 67 games, he's hitting 282. He's got a 781 OPS. He's got about a 120 WRC+. He hasn't hit for power yet. He's got 7 home runs and 12 doubles, 30 RBIs. So he's not, but he's also like one of the tops in the league at hard hit rate. And so to me, that's just like bad luck. When you're hitting the ball hard consistently, you're not quite getting the results. It's just not working for you. But if you keep doing that, the numbers will get better over time. Statistically, it's been proven. So I really like going after him. He's got an extra year of club control too, so he's not a free agent at the end of this year. He's got one more year, so if you were to get him, you'd have him for this season and next season. And I think with a new team, in a winning culture, winning season in first place, I think that would give him a spark, and I think he would shine. I really do. And honestly, he's such a big, strong guy. I do not worry about the marine air or anything in Seattle that limits home runs here. So I think he would do great, and I think that would be a great person to go after. The last target we are going to look at is Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is the first baseman for the New York Mets. He is a free agent at the end of this year, so he would literally be a rental. But being he's a rental, sometimes you don't have to give up as much. You don't have to offer as many high-level prospects. That might be a guy the Mariners pursue. Now, they have Ty France at first, and if they brought Pete Alonso in, obviously they'd have to make some tough decisions of what to do, but you can't tell me that he wouldn't look good in that lineup and make it longer and more powerful. Pete Alonso is a slugger. He's hit over 40 home runs the last 2 years. 4 years ago, he hit over 50 in his rookie year, and he's showed consistent power year in and year out. This year so far, he's hitting 236, 785 OPS, a 126 WRC+ with 14 home runs and 32 RBI. His 20% K rate is a lot lower than a lot of Mariners on the team right now. 8.9% walk rate as well. So I just think he would be also a really good fit. He's a free agent at the end of the year, so it'd be a rental, but if you didn't have to give up too much to get him, it may be worth it, especially when the Mariners are a win-now mode. Now, of those three, who is my number one? Who'd be my number one target if I had to go after it? Well, let me ask you. Of those three, who would you like to see? Who would you like the team to go get if we had amongst those three? Well, my number one option is Vlad Guerrero. I think with an extra year of club control, with his track record of staying on the field, being healthy, and production, that would be the best hitter in our lineup, even at his current state. I think he's the guy we got to go after. We are in win now mode. It's go time. They've got to go make a move. And if they don't have to give up too much to do it, well, that's what we're going to talk about next. Trade bait. Prospects who might be on the move. So the Mariners farm system a few years ago was stocked with just pitching. And offensive players, didn't really hear too much about. But a lot of those pitchers have graduated up, and that's why their starting staff is so dominant. You got George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, Bryce Miller. And now their farm system, they've drafted a lot of really good offensive talent, and now their farm system is loaded with offensive players, some of which have made the team this year, talking about Locklear and Ryan Bliss. Well, they have a lot of other offensive players that are coming up through the farm system right now that we've talked about in the past little bit. You got Ty Pete, who was drafted recently. You got Harry Ford, the upcoming catcher in Double-A this year. You got Colt Emerson, who's a recent draft pick as well. And so you got a bunch of guys down there that are knocking on the door, getting ready to go, the future of the team. Now, if you're going to go get a Vlad Guerrero, let's say, you're going to have to give up one of those guys. But I think the prospect that has the most value right now, honestly, is Harry Ford. Harry Ford is a catcher. He's a catcher in the ranks. He'll probably be ready for the major leagues within a year or two. Well, Cal Raleigh is going to be on the team at least through 2028. That's when he is free agent eligible, and hopefully they lock him up to a long-term deal a long time before that. But Harry Ford has been playing really well. He's killing it in the minor leagues, worked his way up to Double-A. I could probably see him at Triple-A sometime soon. And so his value is at an all-time high. I mean, prospects are so hit and miss when they make the major leagues. It's such a drastic jump from the minor leagues. And when he's coming up and he's a highly touted prospect, this might be the time to move him. So I'd be okay, even though you don't want to give up any of your young players, but you have to do something. So I would probably be okay giving up Harry Ford. Now, Colt Emerson, I am less okay with. He is one of the top prospects with the highest ceiling, and he's playing really well. I just have a hard time including him on any of the rumor mills out there of who they'd give up for a big player. But they may have to. And then you got Emerson Hancock too. He's your sixth starter. He's your depth. We've seen Brian Wu already go down with an injury for even miss a start, and I think you need somebody like Emerson Hancock to come up and make a start for your team. And so I have a hard time seeing them giving up them. But, they're going to have to give up some talent, obviously, and maybe if you went for Pete Alonso, you'd have to give up a little bit less. Vlad more, and even Luis Robert Jr. probably the most. But the time is now. Prospects, they're not guaranteed. Think about how many Mariner prospects have come up, and it's like, this guy is so highly touted, and it just fizzles, and it doesn't work. Because the major leagues, there's such a canyon from AAA to the major leagues, and it's just a tough jump, and not all guys can do it, and the grind of it. And so, if we have to sell off the future, maybe we have to do that right now to get the player we need to win now, because they are in World Series contention mode right now. The fear, obviously, is you're selling away a star, a David Ortiz, or some other star that was traded away as a prospect and becomes a superstar. That's always the fear, but you can't live in fear. You just have to make decisions that are best in the moment and be wise with the resources that you have. Taking advantage of the schedule. The Mariners started off the season with one of the more rough schedules, but the rest of the way, it's fairly favorable. And when you face bad teams under 500, you have to beat them. The old adage is, beat the teams you're supposed to beat and hold serve or break even against the really good teams. And really, so far, the Mariners are doing that. Against teams with a losing record, they're 25-13, 12 games above 500. Now, they're 4 games under 500 against 500 teams, but they've played the most difficult schedule in that, so I'm okay with that. And they also need to win their division games. They're 14-5 against the West, the best record. And they're 23-11 at home. So what are the games you're supposed to win? Under 500 and your home games. And they're 12 games over 500 in both of those scenarios. Now, they are a little under 500, like I said, against over 500 teams, winning teams, playoff teams. But that's going to happen. That's okay. If they can get to 500, that would be a really good number. And then just keep winning the games you're supposed to win. When the Angels came to town, they swept them. They've won the first 3 games against the White Sox, who are the worst team in baseball right now. And so they need to sweep tomorrow. They need to sweep. I'll be at the game tomorrow night on Thursday the 14th. They need to win that game and sweep that series. But wouldn't it be nice to win like 11-2 instead of 2-1 and 4-3 in late game heroic fashion. I mean, those games are fun, but it'd be nice to have like a breathe easy kind of game, if you get my drift. Now, you may have a concern with, but Andy, they're under 500 against good teams, and they've looked overmatched at times. And to that, I say that you're correct, and that's why they haven't played great all season long, and they're still figuring things out, especially on the offensive side. And so if they get better on the offensive side and their pitching stays strong, I believe they will do better against those good playoff teams. Now, when they played at home, they've beat a lot of those good playoff teams. It's on the road that they're struggling a bit. I mean, their pitching staff is like night and day difference from home to road this year. And so that's the area they need to improve. But I don't expect it to be great. I mean, playing playoff teams on the road, I mean, they're trying to win their home games too, and they need to have a high winning percentage at home as well to be a successful team. And so it's going to be tough to beat people in their ballpark. But if you can get that number back to even, then you're doing just fine and winning the games you're supposed to win. Cal Raleigh clutch. The big dumper this year, and honestly, since he's been in the league, has got the clutch factor. And some of you may be thinking like, well, clutch is sometimes just a feeling. Well, I've got some data and numbers to back up the fact that he's clutch and what he's done for the team this year and even in other years that we're going to look at right now. So he hit a walk-off grand slam in Game 1 against the White Sox, and not many players in the league can say they hit a grand slam during a year and then it's a walk-off as well in a game. That was just a huge hit in and of itself, but that's not the first grand slam he's hit this year. He's hit 2, and both of them are go-ahead home runs in the game. He is the only player in the major leagues this year with 2 go-ahead grand slams, including a walk-off this year. He's got 15 RBI in the 8th inning or later. That's second most in the major leagues. He's got 3 game-tying or go-ahead home runs in the 8th inning or later, tied for the most in the major leagues this year. Now, his numbers overall have not been that great, hitting just barely above 200. He leads the team in home runs and in RBIs, but he's got a 998 OPS with 16 RBIs in late-game situations. That leads Major League Baseball. So he hits a walk-off grand slam in Game 1 in this White Sox series, and in the second game, he hits a 2-run double in the 7th inning to give the Mariners a 1-run lead, and they end up winning by 1 run. And it just seems like every time there's a big situation where he needs to come through, more often than not, he delivers. And it's just amazing to see. It doesn't matter what he's done in the game up until that point, but he puts his team on his back, gets the good hit, works the count, and delivers. I mean, I think all of you remember his most clutch home run that he's hit ever 2 years ago, the second biggest walk-off home run in Mariner history. And so I think that's kind of where it started. So I love what he's doing this year. I love that those late game moments is just delivering big time. I'm excited what he's going to be doing the rest of the year, and if he can continue this clutch factor the rest of the way, because the team will need it. This is how they win one-run games, how they win in extra innings. So keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on those late game moments and how he does. We'll talk about it more as the season goes on, but I'm really excited what's happened so far, and it's cool to see some of the numbers behind it as well. Riding the hot hand. Last episode, we did this segment where we focused on a couple players that were hot at the time and helping carry the team. And at the end of that segment, I threw a bold prediction out that Julio was going to get hot. And Julio was cold, underperforming, not playing very well. And it's been a couple weeks, and he is pretty hot. He's not like on fire by any means, but since May 26th, about 15 games, he's hitting .339 during that stretch. He's got an .848 OPS, couple home runs, 10 RBIs, and 65 plate appearances, and a 150 WRC+. So he's doing what he should be doing. Is his power numbers quite there? No, but I mean, he hit a home run off Mason Miller at 103 mile an hour fastball. So I think that's starting to come around. It's not quite, he's not smashing the ball out of the ballpark every other game right now, but still see his average go up 339. He's getting stolen bases. I mean, I like what I'm seeing. I wasn't maybe 100% right on him being super hot, but I'll take it. Close enough for me anyway. But so Julio, hot, not in fuego, but I like what I'm seeing. I like what he's doing, hitting the ball hard, and his bat's getting warm for sure. Hopefully it continues to go, and hopefully the month of June he just continues to rock. The other player I want to focus on is Luke Raley. Now, I focused on him last time, and shortly after I did this, he cooled off quite a bit towards the end of the month of May. But in the month of May, and we talked about him last time, he was hitting 400 in the month of May. He ended up hitting 286 during the month of May, but that was best, or 289 actually, but that was best on the team. That was the best average on the team. He had some of the best numbers. He was second on the team with OPS at 828, third on the team with WRC plus 141. In June so far, he's got a 183 WRC plus. He hit a home run today again, and so that'll raise that number even higher. 976 OPS, now 3 home runs in the month with a 292 average. And Luke Raley's skill set, his unique skill set, is helping him. That bunt base hit he got with 2 outs to tie the game late in Game 1 against the White Sox was unreal. I mean, the guts to 2 outs to put that bunt down, and he has like 5 bunt base hits this year, which is like amongst the leaders in all of Major League Baseball. And for a guy that can hit the ball 450 feet and the speed he possesses, that helps him keep his average up, his on base, and then he slugs a few home runs and helps his team out in that way. And so I'm going to give him the other right in the hot hand. He needs to play. He needs to be in that lineup, even facing lefties. Luke Raley is really the best hitter the Mariners have right now and performing the best game in and game out. And so the way he finished May, top hitter on the team, and then the way he's coming out in June too, he's a guy that just needs to get at bats and needs to keep playing, and he is playing a lot, especially with Ty France being down, and need to just continue to ride his bat, and hopefully he just stays hot throughout the month. And last on the show today, it's another segment of Andy's Rant. What's bugging me today? Well, preparation, getting ready is everything in baseball. When you're in the batter's box and you have a favorable count meaning it's 2 balls and 0 strikes, it's 3-1, it's 3-0. It's a fastball count. Now, in today's game, are you always going to get a fastball? No, you're not. But you need to be prepared to hit the fastball, especially some of these guys in this league that throw 97 to 101 miles an hour. You got to gear up and be ready. And too often I see a Mariners hitter at a 3-1 count, 2-0 count, get a fastball, and they're late on it, and they foul it off, and they're late. And that drives me nuts. I know it's hard to hit, but I would rather see the team gear up and get ready for that fastball. And if you swing underneath it and you miss, you miss. But fouling it off when you're late on the pitch, when it's a fastball count. And I would much rather you gear up for that fastball and they throw a slider in the dirt and you swing over the top of it. Fine. At least you're geared up for the fastball. And so that drives me absolutely nuts. You know, a player, we've talked about him already, that does a really good job of this, though, is Cal Raleigh. In that game on Monday night, 2-0 count, gets a 97-mile-an-hour fastball up in the zone, crushes it for a grand slam. He was absolutely ready for that pitch. And over and over again, I see him ready for those good count pitches. Now, he struggled a bit on 3-2 counts, but that's a little bit different story. But those fastball counts, when you get the fastball, you have to be ready. And too often, I see players in this team not quite ready, or they're thinking too much about the off-speed pitch, and so they're late on the fastball. And in my opinion, you just got to be geared up for that fastball. Hunt fastball, especially on 2-0, 3-1, 3-0 counts. And you see players, when they get the fastball and they're geared up and ready for it, the success rate, I feel like, just goes through the roof. And JP tends to do a good job of this as well. So some players do a good job of it, but too often I just see guys late on it, and it just drives me nuts. So anyway, not too bad today, but that's what's bugging me. And that is a wrap for today's show. Thank you for listening today and following along in this journey. It has sure been fun talking Mariner baseball with you all, and I look forward to continuing. The show is available in most places where you're going to find your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and now on YouTube. You can also find the show on Instagram at Wing and Prayer Podcast. Keep sharing the show. Let's crack that 500 download mark. Thank you again, and go Mariners.